Welcome back. In our previous discussion, we navigated the turbulent waters of the strategic turn. We explored how massive global shifts, neoliberal politics, the explosion of global markets, and the digital revolution rewrote the rules of the game for organizations everywhere. We established the context. But knowing the context is only half the battle. If the world has changed, then the tools we use to navigate it must change too. This brings us to the second movement of our three-part journey in Chapter 1. We are looking at the emergence of Strategic Management Accounting, or SMA. In this session, Part 2, we are going to define exactly what strategy means, not just as a buzzword, but as a discipline. We will strip away the jargon to understand how SMA differs from the traditional accounting you might be familiar with. And crucially, we will see how sustainability is forcing us to redefine the whole concept yet again. So, let's begin by asking a fundamental question. What is strategy? If we trace the genealogy of the word, we don't land in a corporate boardroom. We land on a battlefield. Before strategy was about market share, it was about military science. To understand modern business strategy, we have to look at the classics. Sun Tzu's The Art of War and Carl von Clausewitz's On War. In these military contexts, strategy wasn't about efficiency. It was about positioning. It was about deciding when, where, and how to deploy your resources, your troops, your cavalry, to engage with the enemy. The goal was to secure a territory or a political objective. To do this, generals needed maps. They needed scouts. They needed to know the terrain better than their opponents. This idea of mapping the terrain is the heartbeat of strategic management accounting. In the 1980s, as competition heated up, business thinkers, strategy gurus such as Michael Porter and Henry Mintzberg, and consultancy firms such as Boston Consultancy Group began translating these military concepts into the corporate world. The market became the battlefield. Competitors became the enemy. And the goal became competitive advantage. Now, this was a radical departure from how we used to think about economics. In traditional neoclassical economics, the market was seen as a fixed structure. You were a price taker. You looked at the market, saw the price, and adjusted your production to be as efficient as possible. It was reactive. Strategic thinking flips this upside down. It says the market isn't a fixed cage, it's a dynamic interplay of forces. You have inter-firm rivalry, the threat of new entrants, the bargaining power of suppliers, and the power of buyers. When you view the world this way, accounting can no longer just be about counting costs inside the factory. It has to look outward. It has to help the manager understand the terrain so they can position the firm to win. This brings us to the definition of strategic management accounting. We can define SMA as an ever-evolving set of calculative and analytical techniques used to analyze competitive conditions. Its purpose is to enable decision-making that secures and sustains a strategic position. Let's pause here for a moment to really clarify the difference, because it is easy to get lost in the terminology. Imagine three different accountants standing in a room. The first is the financial accountant. They are looking backward. They are analyzing past events and transactions to produce financial statements for shareholders. They care about accuracy, history, and compliance. The second is the traditional management accountant. They are looking inward. They are focused on the factory floor, looking at operational efficiency, variances, and budgets. Their question is, are we doing things right? Then you have the strategic management accountant. They are looking outward and forward. Their question is, are we doing the right things to beat the competition? They aren't just using internal data. They are using big data analytics, market surveys, and competitor analysis. They are using tools such as the balanced scorecard and Porter's 5 forces to map the competitive terrain. However, our definition of SMA cannot remain static. Remember the global sustainability agenda we touched on in Part 1? That agenda is fundamentally altering the strategic map. We are moving toward what we might call sustainability-driven SMA. You see, traditional strategy focuses on economic competition, markets, efficiency, profit. But we live in a world of contradictions. Economic pursuits often clash with social solidarity, political sovereignty, and ecological solidity. If a company maximizes profit by destroying the environment, it might win the market battle, but lose the war for survival. Therefore, a modern, robust definition of SMA must be broader. It involves conceptualizing and evaluating an organization's conditions not just to position itself in a market, but to address broader ecological and social justice issues. This means the terrain now includes carbon emissions, social inequality, and supply chain ethics. The strategic accountant isn't just counting cash, they are counting carbon footprints and water usage. They are helping the organization navigate a complex world where winning means balancing the books with the needs of the planet and society. So, we have established that strategy is about positioning resources in a competitive and contradictory terrain. We have defined SMA as the toolkit we use to map and navigate that terrain. But where does this actually happen? Strategy isn't just a document sitting in a CEO's drawer. It has to be enacted. It has to be real. This leads us toward the final leg of our journey. Strategy happens in specific domains. It happens in the market, where we set prices and define our brand. It happens in the organizational hierarchy, where we build control systems and cultures. And it happens at the point of production, where labor and technology meet to create value. In our next and final episode, Part 3, we will descend into these specific domains. We will explore how SMA comes alive in pricing decisions, in managing factory floors, and in structuring organizations for resilience. For now, I want you to reflect on this. If strategy is about positioning yourself in a hostile terrain, how good is your map? And more importantly, does your map include the cliffs of climate change and social unrest, or are you still just looking at the road immediately in front of you? Join me next time as we explore the domains of strategic action.